What's up, everybody? Welcome to the FreeChinaPod. It's been a week or so. We've missed y'all.
Yes.
Mostly because you haven't been donating to our Patreon. Did we talk about Afghanistan on the last one?
I can't remember, but there's lots of new stuff that's happened since the last time we pod, whenever that was. I
feel like it was like right before everything happened, but I'm not sure. Yeah, a lot of stuff has changed. It's
New World Order.
Pretty wild. Huh?
It's a New World Order.
NWO. Yeah, it's fucked up. I'm glad the US is out, but it's obviously horrible for the women, and I mean the chaos at the Kabul airport is pretty bad.
A lot of people are now criticizing, saying that these deadlines were kind of arbitrarily created, and that they were very stupid, and that we probably should have tried to evacuate all U.S. citizens and I guess Afghan collaborators, for lack of a better word, before we pulled the troops out.
Yeah, maybe.
The other thing is that
what the argument from the Biden administration on that was, though, is that they were saying basically if they were to do that, it would create basically distrust of the government and fear and panic. Which
wait, what?
If they started mass evacuating U.S. people and U.S. citizens and allies of the U.S., that it would create panic.
Oh, you mean like the panic that exists right now?
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm just saying that was their line on it. I mean,
well,
it was gonna crumble either way, but there is also something to be said about the fact that it's probably pretty likely that Biden was given bad. He even admitted it. He said we didn't know it was going to happen this fast. To what degree that's true, I have no idea. But
what I also heard is that this was like the worst time possible. So basically, like they could have waited until winter when all the Taliban were basically like stuck up in the mountains, unable to cross out of the mountain passes and like come down and try and take the cities, which may have given the government not only a fighting chance, but time to regroup, maybe time to pay their troops, things like that. And instead, they're just like, "Now we're gonna stick with the Trump timeline."
Well, they hadn't been paying the troops. They hadn't been doing a good job of doing that for after 20 years anyway. So I have very little hope that anything would have happened much better. I mean, I agree. I wish they would have just pulled, regardless, they knew the collapse was coming. How soon they knew it would happen is debatable. I mean, we as average citizens will probably never know. But yeah, I wish they would have gotten people out first as well. But
what I didn't realize is how closely the Trump administration collaborated with the Taliban to
fight ISIS.
To basically negotiate this kind of ceasefire where they weren't firing at U.S. troops for the longest time. And, I mean, this basically paved the way for them to evacuate the country. So they knew that the Taliban was a major force. It's okay, I'll just wash my hands. It was going to take over. And they basically gave them everything they wanted, which was stability and getting the fuck out of the way. So they could take the Kabul government down right at, like, the perfect time of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't really see how it could have really gone any different. Could have been slightly better probably, but I think probably the most important thing is that we got out, because regardless if we were there another 5, 10, 100 years, it was probably always going to fall. Like,
maybe.
I just don't. I mean, and
it's always useful to speculate and try and pretend that history may have been different.
That's right. It's very fun positing counterfactuals. I agree. But yeah, I don't know. We
didn't have that many troops back there to begin with. Like, towards the end, I don't know what the actual numbers were, but I think there were like under 10,000 actual troops in Afghanistan, which is a pretty small contingent. It's like more like the logistical and symbolic ideas of having them there. So,
yeah, I mean, but it's just a money hole. I mean, we spent $2 trillion, and essentially most of that went to weapons contractors, for these private companies that leech off the government, these fucking welfare queens. So I don't know, it's gross. I'm glad we're out. I hope and pray that obviously everyone is safe. There's obviously already been violence and allegations of the Taliban, looking for people that were against them before. So I don't know.
what I've heard that's concerning right now is that the U.S. basically does not have the capacity to evacuate all the people that it needs to before the August 31st quote unquote deadline. And in order to meet that deadline, in order to close up operations at the airport, they also need another 2 days. And the Taliban is already basically threatening the U.S. should they cross that deadline. I think this is just like, I mean, I know the Chinese government is kind of shaming us, but you saw like Angela Merkel in the EU basically saying that, you know, like nobody can rely on the U.S. anymore. It's just kind of like a laughing stock of the world. We're a joke.
Yeah,
like,
I think that's a little bit absurd.
This is like the leader of the largest party in Germany for like 20 something years. She's not a reactionary or a radical saying that. So she's basically held the EU together. That's a pretty strong statement to say that the EU can no longer rely on the United States for its own security.
I mean, it's also not really true. I mean, it's not like we wouldn't protect Germany. Like it's a joke. And I've seen this also with people trying to compare it to Taiwan, how Taiwan can't trust the US anymore. And I don't think that that's true. I mean, there are things that should be criticized, but like continuing a forever war in Afghanistan, I don't see how that means no one can trust the US anymore. I think it's a bit silly.
Talk about in terms of trust. If you're talking about guaranteeing Germany's security from like a Soviet invasion, even that I think it would be questionable. There's no Soviet.
I was going to say
Russian invasion with nuclear weapons on the table. But I think more what's concerning is that.
But is that a real threat though? I don't think Russians.
That's not what they were talking about. I'm saying that's like the generality that you're talking about an invasion. If somebody was threatening Germany, that's not what they're talking about. They're talking about the fact that they committed troops to the NATO effort to do this. Their troops are stuck out there just like ours, like basically trying to hold things together because the U.S. kind of arbitrarily decided to pull out without a plan and without consulting any of their allies there. It was completely unilateral. Just like
there probably should have been more consultation, but there comes a point where if everyone else just wants to stay, then listen, then you can stay. NATO forces can stay. Like it's not on the U.S. to fight these forever wars where we literally made no ground.
Right. That's not the argument that anyone's making. The argument is making that they should have talked to them. Yeah. They just didn't do anything. They're just like, we're pulling out. We don't give a fuck what anyone else thinks. And that's how they did it.
That's how the U.S. has operated for quite a while.
That's not what we did when we went into Afghanistan. That's why we have coalition troops with us. Yeah. And that is what we did in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and why we took so much criticism. So it's interesting that despite all that criticism, the United States administration seemed to have learned absolutely fucking nothing and did whatever it wanted.
I mean,
getting out of this.
That's like what I'm saying. The U.S. kind of always does what it wants. If it wants to. Yeah, not always. But if they want to, we just kind of do what we want. So I don't know. Yeah, I mean, obviously you should consult with your allies before you do stuff like this. But I wonder what they would have said if they would have just wanted to stay indefinitely. Because
maybe they would have better advice. Like, I don't think anyone's suggesting they should have stayed indefinitely. How about staying until wintertime when the Taliban would have taken like 8 months to cross into the capital instead of 2 weeks because the passes are all closed up by snow. Like,
yeah, but I mean, Taliban is also like embedded inside the cities. So and clearly they basically just walked in and people just handed over their arms. So like I don't know that it. Again, I don't know that it would have been different. Again, we can speculate. A lot of it is symbology.
The fact that cities were falling so fast meant that a lot of people were totally unwilling to fight. Had that been a slower crawl, and had the government, which by the way at its like peak force had twice the size of the fighting force and was far better equipped than the Taliban, had they stayed together, had they been well paid, had they had a reason, and had they basically been afraid of the Taliban, which they weren't, things may have been really different. But I mean, it was just sloppy all around. It was a really sloppy job, and I love criticizing the Biden administration. So I think it's okay to say that the Biden administration really
screwed the pooch on this one.
I say they made the absolute right decision, and yeah, they didn't handle it.
They didn't make the decision. Donald Trump made that decision.
Well, they made the decision to follow through on it. So and Trump was talking about that. There's no way that he would have pulled out. No way.
I don't know.
Because the big handsome generals would come in and say, "Listen, Trump, you're very handsome, Mr. President, but we can't pull out now. We got to stay just a few more years."
Possible.
I would bet a very small sum of money, because that's all I have right now, that he wouldn't have pulled out. But
I feel like Biden was probably getting similar advice from the same generals, because generals are nonpartisan in general. So they told, I mean, whatever Biden was thinking. Biden Biden was part of the Obama administration who wanted to ramp up the Afghanistan war between 2008 and 2016 during that administration. So I don't see Biden as fundamentally being against the Afghan war. I think now it's like a popular thing, and that's what he's rolling with.
Yeah, at the time he was VP though, so I don't know. It's hard to say. And Obama is kind of a cuck, so it's unsurprising that he would just do whatever big money tells him. I mean, look at when he got out of office. Look at his recent party in Martha's Vineyard. Like, he just wants to be rich and popular. So
I just mean reflecting on Biden as being a part of that administration.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. I think it's possible. It's possible that he changed his mind, or it's possible that he was of the same mind the whole time. But obviously, the VP's not going to be like, I think what the president is doing is a horrible idea. And they did yo-yo troop levels a lot. They were like, we're doing a drawdown. Now we're ramping back up. Now we're doing a drawdown. We're ramping back up, which is basically
it was disastrous
everyone's
from top to bottom. But I think that the most of the blame belongs with George W. Bush for installing one of the worst governments ever. I shouldn't say installing, for basically, because they helped them write the Constitution. They helped them set up this government, and Afghanistan should not be a country any longer. I think I've wrote an article about this. It should have written an article about this. It should have been partitioned, honestly. Like, there's too many different ethnic groups. There's too many Taliban. There's too much money and troops flowing over from Pakistan. That country should have been split into tiny pieces that could have basically done self-governance, which is exactly more or less what they're doing now, with Taliban raising their flags over city offices, but having very little sovereignty in a large swaths of the country.
No.
So there's really no reason it had to end like this. George W. Bush and then successive Democratic administrations and then Trump just continuously screwed up, didn't help the situation at all.
Well, the whole media is complicit in this. I mean, they've been recently, of course, trying to whitewash George Bush and clean the blood off his hands. So, complicit, and they should not be viewed for that reason, at the very least, if not sent to Guantanamo.
I also think the Afghan people need to. I'm not saying that overall each individual person is responsible, but with the amount of city officials who basically handed their guns over and said, "Go ahead, we'll take the bribe. You know, you're now in charge of this city." The amount of soldiers who basically just fled their outposts. They had a corrupt government, but they had the choice between a corrupt secular government and a corrupt, basically theocratic government. And this is the one they chose.
Well, so, I mean, the president dipped right away, and I think
the president didn't dip until the last week. The country was already collapsed by that point. They were basically in the city by the time the president flew. And I'm not saying that they should have supported him. I'm saying it's their choice. I'm saying,
yeah, it is. But I mean, that choice is probably basically like live under Taliban rule. Depending on where you are, in some of the cities, it may not be as strict as maybe in the countryside. We don't know yet. We'll see. Or maybe just get killed. So, I mean, I think people are operating on survival instincts. And like you said earlier, like, they're not being paid like a lot of the military and officials. So I don't know. It's unsurprising. It was very.
Some of it is unsurprising, but some of it, I don't know. I think that I'm not saying that they're wrong. I'm just saying that what has happened, the fact that it's gone back to the Taliban, was not without the tacit consent of the majority of the Afghan population, it seems like. And there are hundreds of thousands of people who fear death, who fear persecution from the Taliban. I'm not dismissing that at all. Mm-hmm. But that's not to say that the majority of the the Afghan population, of which 50% are males and don't really stand to lose many of their rights under this, just really didn't care that much. They didn't really see the difference, and they saw no reason fighting for a government that they saw as corrupt. And not right or wrong. Just I'm saying it's their choice. This is their choice.
I've said before, like there are just I don't think there are any good choices in that country. It's like Taliban, ISIS, House of Cards government that the U.S. poorly set up.
Yeah, I think had they had like locally administered, basically semi-sovereign states within a federation, maybe there would have been some semblance of a government that could have held itself together. But I don't know. This is really getting into the weeds.
Yeah,
it's sad, but
It is sad, and we'll see what happens. Hopefully they do have some liberalizations, but I don't know. Like I said before, I'm not holding out much hope for the Taliban, and it seems like they're back on their old shit already.
I saw one thing I thought we could discuss. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, since we kind of dumped on Biden a bit, I wanted to give him a little bit of credit, which I'm not want to do, but every once in a while I gotta call a spade a spade. He signed that executive order that a lot of people are hoping will cut down on monopolies and also lead to more right to repair stuff, which I'm currently working on an article.
So what did the order include? Because companies are gonna fight that because they love having this authorized repair BS.
Oh yeah, of course. It's like most executive orders. So I can read you the opening thing. It says, a fair, open, and competitive marketplace has long been a cornerstone of the American economy. While excessive market concentrations threaten basic economic liberties, democratic accountability, and the welfare of workers, farmers, and small businesses, startups, and consumers. Okay, so here it says, this order affirms that it is the policy of my administration to enforce the antitrust laws to combat excessive concentrations in the industry, the abuse of market power, and the harmful effects of monopoly. Yeah, I haven't read the whole thing, but...
Send it to me. I'll check it out, too.
It's quite long. But yeah, it's like just reiterating basically a lot of like the Sherman Antitrust Act, things like that.
So maybe he's suggesting that they would use existing antitrust laws to go after companies who try to limit the right of repair, but I'm not...
It mostly, seems like they're trying to encourage competition and, the breakup of these monopolies. But look out for the article, everyone. I'll definitely break down at least parts of it in there, and I'll read the whole executive order and we can talk about it next week. But it's at least a step in the right direction, it seems like, for fighting some of these monopolies.
It's good he took a stance on it.
Yeah, and he's actually been, while he's no FDR, he's definitely been more pro-union than probably any president since the current era. At least since
Taft.
I don't know. Yeah, since Taft. What were you gonna say?
This is a controversial thing. So,
great.
I know everyone loves controversy.
We're gonna get canceled.
This is an interesting one. It was about Old Navy expanding their plus size clothing lines.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, this was an article through Bloomberg, and what I thought was interesting is that obviously during the pandemic, a lot of people's health has gotten worse, and you can talk about people's rights if they're overweight or have disabilities or something like that. But what it was essentially suggesting is that before, whereas a lot of retailers in the United States, if there was an article of clothing that was orders of magnitude larger than the others, so you have normal sizes, let's say small to extra large, something's like 3 extra large, they would charge at a higher price for that because of the additional material cost.
Right.
And what they're saying is, in order to streamline it, that some of these companies are just raising the cost for everybody.
Yeah.
To basically, it's essentially, some people would argue that it's subsidizing people who buy clothes that are several orders of magnitude larger than everyone else, and that it's actually raising costs on all consumers to subsidize a minority group.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to take a stance on that, but I think that's interesting. It's a really interesting topic because it's like, does it serve society better when, in order to avoid hurting their feelings or making them feel like they're singled out, all of society has to pay for, and this isn't like a right to buy Old Navy clothing,
right?
So you can't frame it in that way. But when we're talking about the difference between small and extra large, you're talking about maybe 40% more material. When you're talking about, let's say, the difference between a medium and a 3XL, for sometimes you're talking about 3 times the material. So it's substantially more expensive to produce, and then it would substantially raise costs on all consumers.
It would be true. That's also true then for very tall people though, as well.
Yeah,
and then you would have to.
So out of fairness, should society try to make it so that everyone pays the same, or should somebody who's using a lot more resources have to pay more? You don't get, you don't pay the same but get a different size meal based on your weight, on the idea that you have a higher caloric consumption every day and that you need those calories to fill in it.
Right.
So why are we subsidizing people in the clothing industry? I think it's an really interesting thing, and it's an interesting shift.
It is interesting. I think the U.S. also does obviously have a health crisis.
Yeah, we're the worst in the world for obesity.
And it's not just obesity. I mean, heart disease, just people. And
well, those are linked to obesity.
Of course, sometimes, yeah. I mean, I know people that have heart issues that aren't overweight.
Right.
They're just
I'm
incredibly
just saying
unhealthy.
It's linked. I'm
yeah,
not
yeah,
saying
no.
They're directly always causative. I'm just saying that they're linked.
And yeah, I mean, it's tough. We definitely have to get more serious about health in the United States. I know, like during lockdown, I've been trying to exercise more, but I don't know. It's also
I don't know either.
the other side of that is like, I think it's got to be like policy based, and
why?
I don't think
Shouldn't this be up to the individual companies to decide what?
No. I'm talking about like getting people healthier in the United States.
Oh.
I think we've talked about things like subsidizing actual healthy foods instead of just like
Yeah.
instead of just corn, and that gets turned
Corn
into.
is delicious, Jordan.
It is delicious, but we should be making sweet corn, not feed corn that we either turn into like high fructose corn syrup or feed to the animals that are leading to climate change.
Right. We should subsidize organic farming in general, I think. So that
yeah.
you don't have anything like...
And so organic produce isn't so damn expensive, man.
Well, it's getting
better,
I haven't
but
been
it's
to the U.S. in a few
still
years. But
expensive.
it wasn't significantly more. If you're talking about like going back to when I lived in the U.S., like the amount of money that I spent on food in the U.S. relative to my income was so fractional compared to living in Taiwan and being extremely poor here. And it's actually the majority of my expenses here. It's like living in the 18th century.
I pay very little money. I mean, the food is so cheap here. I pay very little money for
How much
food.
do you think you spend a day on food?
Currently, I pay about $80
A day?
$80 a day.
Yeah, that's far below average. I would say most people spend probably around $200 a day on food.
Most people are eating like 3 whole meals. I'm eating
Right.
one meal for 2 meals. I split my one meal in half and eat it half of it in the afternoon and half of it at night.
So let's say an average person spends something like 200, about 3 meals a day, about 60 NT
Yeah,
a piece.
200 I think is fair. Yeah.
That's about $6K a month, which is like, if the average salary is $30K, somewhere around there, that's about 20% of the average salary.
Yeah.
In the United States, I never spent anywhere close to 20% of my salary on food. Not even close. If I spent $1,000 on food, that would be insane. And like that, I mean, over the course of the year, I don't know why I said that. That number doesn't fit in. But anyway,
Ari's making thousands and thousands of dollars a month in the United States.
20% of my salary. Yeah, I was making something like, the last job I had there wasn't like super great. Something like 2K a month. Is that right? Yeah, something around 2K a month. So that would be like $400 a month on food. That would have been like insane. $400 a month on food. That would be like spending $15 a day. I guess if you're eating out every meal, I don't know. It just seems like I spend a lot more of my income on food here, relative, because food is not significantly cheaper, but incomes are relatively lower.
Yeah, it depends on which foods. I mean, a lot of
Fresh foods. Restaurant food is obviously cheaper.
Yeah, I think certain locally grown fruits and vegetables are much cheaper.
Are they?
Yeah, I mean, I remember if you could find a mango where I used to live, it would be like
that's a tropical, non-local fruit.
That's what I'm saying.
But I'm talking about buying local. If you buy local food,
you're saying American local food?
Yeah, American.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it also depends on like if you have access to it, because in Taiwan we have probably, unless you live like in the mountains or like maybe somewhere like in the remote East Coast somewhere, or like Matsu or something, you probably have access to like a traditional market where you can get moderately cheap produce.
In a city, yeah, but in villages it's less common.
Right. It's true, but also
they're also open often during work hours, so like it's not convenient for working people.
It's true. That's true. I mean, you could go early in the morning, but then that's quite quite inconvenient. But I mean, yeah, for the most part, I feel like you can probably get access to it somehow. I mean, they're not always. It's not like they're only. They're a lot of them are open on the weekend as well. So, yeah, I don't know.
Original point being that switching from a non-organic, if you're cooking at home in America, switching from a non-organic to an organic diet, unless you're shopping at Whole Foods for everything, like if you're even at Walmart carries a ton of organic stuff. It's like it's gonna add probably like $10 every 2 weeks to your grocery bill. Like it's not that out of the line.
Yeah, the issue for us was if we wanted to get organic, even if we wanted to go to Walmart, you need to drive like 45 minutes. So that's a lot of transportation costs.
Where did you get food?
We would usually drive the 45 minutes, or because we could also go to the local grocery store where, to my recollection, there was nothing organic and everything was like at least 75% more
Expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, America's obviously a lot lower density. So when you talk, I understand the arguments about urban food deserts, but for the countryside, that's just like anyone who lives in the country anywhere in the world will face similar issues. I think if you can't grow it yourself, you're gonna face a huge cost to go get access to more expensive foods.
That's one thing I would say though about more rural areas in Taiwan is a lot of them seem to grow a lot of their own produce.
Yeah,
and to be fair, a lot of places in the U.S. do as well. Like we would grow a lot of our own produce. I know my family still does, and there's usually when you live in rural areas, there's also like a farmer's market. Now the how plentiful. Like sometimes it's just like they just have like watermelon and corn. So that's like you can't make your diet off that, but it could still help you subsidize that stuff. Also, usually not organic. They're usually using pesticides. So
gross.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, I think it's an interesting thought. I think also like there are probably other policy prescriptions like perchance Medicare for all, so we could like take care of people and give them regular access to doctors where they could get advice on how to take care of themselves better.
So just to go back to the original topic, do you have any stance on that? You don't have to take one. I'm just wondering what you think.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's tricky, I know.
Yeah, I just don't really care because like I don't go.
It's a private company.
I don't buy that many new clothes. I buy them
don't
more
shop at Old Navy.
Yeah, I buy only for my 4th of July T-shirts. Gotta get my American flag shirt. I mean, in the U.S. I used to do a lot of secondhand clothing store shopping, which I do less of in Taiwan. But I also don't buy that many clothes in Taiwan, so I don't know.
Having to throw a lot out because of the mold lately.
Yum. Yeah, I don't have a super strong stance. I would be interested to see what other people, if anyone has like a really strong argument, but I don't have like a super strong opinion either way.
Okay.
I just hope that my opinion is that Americans and people around the world, Taiwanese are facing increasingly the same problem as well,
yeah, they
of
are.
being unhealthy and overweight. So
that's another thing with like personal agency where I can see Taiwanese people, they're like, oh, Americans are so fat. Let's go get fried chicken for dinner.
yeah.
Like
KFC,
Taiwanese people love fried chicken with a passion I seldom see anywhere else.
Maybe only surpassed by South Korea. They really love fried chicken there too. But
who's overall more overrated, Taiwanese or Koreans? Koreans tend to be a little bit more like thick because they have harsher winters, I think. But
yeah, I don't have any data, so mine would only be anecdotal. But I would say,
let me look it up.
All right, let's give the facts. Only the facts, folks.
Okay, so Taiwan is not considered a country by whoever compiles this, and they're not included in this list, unfortunately.
Get fucked.
South Korea is one of the lowest countries in the world with 4.7% obesity rates, surpassed by, strangely enough, North Korea. Which I don't understand since they seem to be in a perpetual famine.
Well,
Who compiles this?
Yeah, I don't know where those statistics are from.
CIA.
Huh. I wonder where the CIA is getting their North Korean numbers. Probably from the North Korean state.
Well, they probably have some intelligence, like, networks there.
Maybe.
Anyway, that's weird.
I would posit that that's probably at least in part, because I would say, I don't know about like the gender breakdown, but and again, this is anecdotal, but the men in Korea seem to be a little, not fat, but like a little bit, I don't know what, fluffy, pudgy, something like that. So I obviously saw a lot of skinny men there as well, but I think it's partially because of the beauty standards in there that people like, especially women, probably want to be rail thin. And I don't, again, this is somewhat conjecture because I know they have really high beauty standards. That's why they have so much plastic surgery.
Apparently, Arab states seem to be the highest, other than obviously like the South Pacific, like
Yeah.
is the highest on all of these. Like Nauru, Palau, Tuvalu are all over 50% obese.
Our good buddies in Palau.
But right under the United States, it's like reading a list of like the Organization of Arab States: Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Libya, Turkey, Egypt, Lebanon, UAE.
Huh.
And then Bahamas, New Zealand, and then back to Iraq, Bahrain. It's like strange.
This is interesting. Well, speaking of
It's all that delicious food.
Yum yum.
They also like really oily meat,
yeah, that's gross. Speaking of Palau,
like camel.
they like tried to open that the travel bubble up again.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and they think that maybe they said that as of now there wasn't any Taiwanese infected, but there was imported cases to Palau, and then they were worried that they had come in contact with the Taiwanese. So maybe that shouldn't be at the top of our priority list, but I just wanted to get that in there because
That travel bubble's still open. I'm gonna book a little trip. Book a little trip, folks.
I'm gonna go take a little trip.
How much does it cost?
They may have dropped by now, but when
I'd love to burn through my savings. My US savings.
80K, I think.
Jeez.
Yeah, it was.
for a round trip ticket.
Yeah, I don't know if that includes hotel as well, but
I'm just gonna look.
this was when it first opened, like months ago, though. So we'll see what they say now.
How many cases were there today?
6 total, 5 imported, but one
That's good.
in New Taipei.
Well, they really don't show up on Google Flights, so I don't know how you're supposed to be booking these.
They may have closed it down. I'm not
Already
sure.
Closed already.
I just remember there were, like last week, there was so many questions about it. That's what everyone. Oh, Palau, pow. That's what everyone would ask.
Sounds very dirty.
No comment.
I heard there were protests. Did you hear about the protests?
There's a lot of protests around
In
the world.
Afghanistan. People
Oh.
were protesting the government. They were like,
I saw women were protesting, which is quite brave. Not many of them, but a couple of them.
they don't seem to be like killing many of the protesters, but they're definitely killing some.
Well, yeah, and there was gunfire exchange at the airport recently too. I know there was the first one. There was weird mixed reporting, and I get it. It's like really chaotic on the ground, I'm sure. But first people were saying that U.S. troops opened fire on civilians, and then later I saw that they were shooting in the air, which is
That's what I saw.
safer. Which is safer, but also not a good idea. Shooting in the air is not. It's not 100% safe. Like those bullets come back down.
From what I understand, they were being basically like rushed. Like people.
Yeah. Which lends itself to that this should have been more well organized. But then there definitely were deaths, but I didn't see the cause of the deaths. I assume probably just being trampled.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. There was did you see there was another bombing attack in Pakistan?
You told me yesterday.
Yeah. For everyone that isn't Ari, there was another bombing, and it was against like a Chinese convoy basically, and some suicide bomber blew it up, and
Suicide bomber.
Yeah.
From which group?
I didn't see, but
I did not catch that detail because it's very different to do a roadside bomber and a suicide bomber. You're actually like somebody's giving their life to take out a stupid envoy.
Yeah, it was a bus full of workers that they were trying to attack because they're working on that dam.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, oh no, wait, no, that was the last one. This one was on, it just says Chinese personnel. So I assume it's probably similar. It was probably Chinese workers.
Okay.
Yeah, it
Did
was.
you see who did it?
It was in Balochistan.
Balochistan.
Is that how you pronounce it? It was in. How do you say that?
Balochistan, or you said Battle Christian?
I said Balochistan because that's how it looks. What is it? Balochistan?
If it's Balochistan.
Yes, that's what it is.
Yeah, it's a pretty testy region. Let's just say.
So the Pakistan foreign minister said Pakistani Taliban militants were behind the attack. But
That's really weird.
I mean,
There is a
I don't know.
Pakistani Taliban, and
yeah.
to some extent, because of the issues that Afghanistan has had since like the 1970s. Anyway, people have been going across the border, and Pakistan has given a lot of them safe haven, and they've established like a kind of a separate Pakistan who are more interested in Pashto rights than in preserving the Pakistani state as is. So
I'm also interested to see, speaking of Pakistan, what role they're going to play in Afghanistan now,
Pakistan,
if any. Yeah.
I mean, lots of intelligence would argue that the Pakistani intelligence, which is the ISI, what is it, internal? I don't know, something intelligence, internal intelligence service, something like that. They basically exercise a lot of control of influence over the Taliban because they've been logistically and they've been providing them aid, let's just say, for decades.
Right. I wonder how that will strain or work in tandem with the relationship with China and the Taliban.
That's what you were asking about last night.
I don't really have any big predictions, but
one thing I can add that I didn't say yesterday is they have a common enemy, and one of the reasons that Pakistan is so happy that the Taliban has taken over is because India always has tried to have some kind of influence in Afghanistan, and they hate Taliban. So as long as they have that common enemy, and by the way, I mean, India also hates China,
and China hates India. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got basically three parties here who are united in their mutual hatred of India. So that might hold them together to some extent.
It might. That's...
More than internal issues, but I don't know. The Pakistani state is, let's just say I don't understand it super well, but from what I do understand, they should be able to probably hold their country together and do whatever they think is best in Afghanistan without worrying too much about internal tension. But I don't know. I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll wait and see, but could be
the military is very powerful there.
Yeah, could be potential for some clashes. I don't think like violent clashes. I'm thinking more diplomatic ones, but I don't know.
I can say also I don't particularly like Imran Khan. I thought because when he originally took over Pakistan for a long time was essentially ruled by, I don't say military dictators, but like people that were heavily associated with the military.
Well, some of them were generals.
Yeah, like Musharraf, and then seeing Imran Khan, who is like kind of this internationalist like footballer, come in. It's a little bit like Donald Trump, where they thought there would be kind of like a massive shift, and he didn't really shift very much. He seems to have been keeping very strong Pakistani relations with China, number one, and not really threatening the power of the religious right on power in Pakistan, number two. So it's a little bit disappointing, and it seems like he's probably constrained by the military as well to some extent. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know if they would have another like military coup right now if they didn't like his actions.
Yeah, I don't know that it'll be that serious. I just wonder about the diplomatic relations between the countries. Do you want to talk about? Do you have time? Do you want to talk about the rocket program in Taiwan?
Yeah, we can talk about it.
Yeah, just that they basically Taiwan killed its native built rocket systems.
So did they fully kill it?
That's from the articles I've been reading. That's what it sounds like. I don't know that it would be. I don't know how hard it would be to just start back up, but
yeah, I don't know what to say. I think that just another stupid move from the Tsai administration. I think that China, having basically said in public that they have enough rockets to destroy every man, woman, and child in Taiwan, and like continuously repeating that, for Taiwan to have the aspiration to build a domestic rocket program. Yeah. That being enough of a threat to arouse the suspicion of the United States to basically suggest that they don't do that. There's so many stupid people here who don't realize like the minuscule scale of like having a domestic rocket program to basically bring payloads into space. And the fact that Taiwan is like constantly threatened at every turn, and they basically are like, we're not going to do anything. We rely on the United States. And the United States is like, fuck you. We're not giving you any qualifications whatsoever. But if you do anything that pisses us off, we're basically going to break ties with you. Like it's like the perfect abusive partner.
Biden said that he basically doubled down on the fact that that the U.S. would defend Taiwan, and then his what was it Blinken? Someone like immediately was like, our stance hasn't changed.
Exactly, which is just continuous ambiguity. So the Taiwanese government, just like it's been doing since the 1980s, puts all its faith in a country who is not willing to state on the record that it's willing to defend you. It's like a classic abusive partner. I don't know what else to say, and they just keep going back.
It also makes it harder to push for those things, like to do any sort of like more weapon creation, or like, I mean, any sort of like nuclear stuff. Like, it makes it hard when the giant countries like threatening to invade you and you don't have any friends. Like, who's going to come to our aid? Fucking Palau. Like,
I agree with you, but had they not been so worried about U.S. basically the corruption that they got from siphoning off this U.S. money in the 80s, and by the way, this is not the DBB's fault, this is the KMT's fault, then Taiwan would have nuclear weapons and we wouldn't be having this fucking discussion in the first place, because Taiwan would be completely militarily self-sufficient. With nuclear weapons, as North Korea has evidently shown, there's no way anymore to conquer it. You cannot take it over because of the threat of mutually assured destruction. Yeah. They decided to wholesale sell that, not once, but twice, for the half-ass whitewashed promises of two mealy-mouthed U.S. presidents who, like, within 20 years have basically turned the half guarantee to no guarantee at all. And the Tsai administration is like, yeah, I think we've been doing pretty good so far. Let's just keep doing this.
I think in terms of diplomacy, they have been doing a good job. In terms of military preparedness,
they've been doing nothing. They've been going the opposite way.
I don't know how much they've been buying weapons from the U.S., but that's also partially on the U.S. because the U.S. always sells this fucking bunk shit.
Since in the last 5 years, the size of the military has decreased. I don't know about the funding. I haven't tracked it. Their fleet of basically every single piece of weaponry has aged. Besides the handful of planes that the U.S. sells them, the really old generation F-16s against China's latest generation fighter jets, it's a joke. Like, instead of spending more money, which we should be doing because it's a persistently threatened state, Taiwan spends less money than they should. They've cut the draft now to 6 months. Was it 4 months? Sorry.
Yeah.
From wherever it was, a year, as if a year is enough even. Like a few years ago, it's a joke. They're not taking it seriously at all. They're relying more and more on the United States, and the United States is pulling further and further away. Maybe not.
I don't know if I agree with that.
The United States has still not made any substantive promise.
Yeah,
and they're selling them less and less weapons.
Yeah, we'll see what happens going.
Cooler weapons, like.
Well, I mean, they've pretty consistently sold like old, outdated weapons technologies. We'll see. It seems that for all the hair pulling and gnashing of teeth that happened when Biden got elected by, like, China Twitter, it seems like he's been pretty strong on standing up for Taiwan in terms of a U.S. president. It's totally not enough. But it is good to see that we're having more diplomatic cooperation. I agree. But I generally agree with everything you just said, though. I think it's.
I agree with your point as well. But I think that Taiwan needs to, just like Angela Merkel in her statement, like, basically just expecting the U.S. to carry on this basically mealy-mouthed defense of Taiwan in perpetuity is really, really misguided. And over the long term, they're suffering, because if they restarted a military buildup now, maybe in 10 years, they could be able to take on the Chinese military, who is growing every year, unlike the Taiwanese military. It's like you have a constant threat and you just ignore it and pretend like everything's going to be okay forever. There's a coming calamity in Taiwan. The Taiwanese government is not willing to face it, I feel like. Besides the relationship that they have with the United States, they need to play a little bit of hardball and say, like, that's great that you think that the Chinese government is going to step up its already ridiculous number of sorties into our airspace, but since you're not willing to go on the record and defend us, fuck you. Like, we're going to defend ourselves. Like, stop telling. Because of you, our sovereignty is threatened literally every fucking day of our lives. So that's great that you can sit in Washington and pass judgment. But, like, there comes a point where it's like, enough is enough. Like, either make a military commitment or shut the fuck up.
I tend to agree. I mean, I don't know. I think the Thai administration is in a tough spot, and I'm not trying to defend the Thai administration because they've done good stuff, they've done bad stuff. I think they're pretty average, like, neolib government. Honestly, I'm not terribly impressed. They've done good stuff and bad stuff, but I hope that maybe they are making pleas like this or demands
I would hope
behind
so.
the scenes. I hope so, but I mean, again, nothing we'll ever probably know.
They're definitely mixed, but like, this is not a normal time. Like not most. I shouldn't say that. There's a significant portion of the U.S. military and its intelligence community who basically says like the next 6 years there's going to be a war.
Yeah.
This is like, and not only that, but that the U.S. may or may not even intervene, and the Taiwanese government is like, nah. That's basically how they're responding to it.
I mean, you don't want to lose any sort of that relationship if you're afraid that the U.S. is just going to cut if you're like man up or get the fuck out, and then they just dip.
It's like gambling. The same thing like I said before. It's
definitely
like gambling
odds.
on a really wishy-washy lover, basically. Yeah. So let's say there is a Kamala Harris in 6 months.
Oh, please.
Then
God,
Taiwan is completely fucked, and they have done nothing to prepare for it. So that's why I think I'm not saying cut the U.S. relationship short, but I think the U.S.
definitely don't cut the U.S. relationship short.
The U.S. has a very high tolerance, and they try and use force when they try and use forceful language and try and lock people into positions when they know they can't. And they think that the Taiwanese administration is desperate. However, the U.S. is also desperate and heavily reliant on preserving Taiwanese sovereignty. And it will be a cold day in hell before they completely like cut off relations with Taiwan or cut out that military defense agreement. Because if they did, that would be the end of U.S. power in Asia. And I think they know that too. And the Taiwanese government doesn't seem to get that they have a good hand right now. They're unwilling to play that because of the normal cowardice that comes from being in power. And I agree, they're in a hard place, but grow the fuck up. Like, you're in a position of government. I would say to Tsai Ing-wen.
I think they also feel like they're making gains right now is another thing I would say because because the relationship has definitely improved. Like going from Trump, who didn't seem to he probably couldn't locate Taiwan on a map, like, and was going to sell Hong Kong for a better deal with the Chinese. So
I totally agree with that, but I don't know how much of that is due to the Taiwanese obeisance of American demands for them to not basically develop their military at all, or because the American government, without having a free and independent Taiwan, basically loses all of their chip infrastructure and all of their influence in Asia and becomes a third tier fucking basically ex-Soviet Union.
And puts the rest of their allies in the region at great risk.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Their influence would collapse. First of all, Japan, the influence that we have, our relationship with them would be over tomorrow. Yeah. Like, they would basically nuclearize the next day and kick us all of our bases. And the United States, a relationship with Korea would probably face the same fate within a couple of years once they're close to nuclear breakout. Like, it's a matter of time, and the U.S. knows that. And once that happens, the United States' military strategy, their power, their ability to project is a fucking joke. We've lost all our outward bases in the Pacific.
I think that might be the hand that they're waiting on in Taiwan is just saying the U.S. has to defend us, right? Like, I mean, like you said, they'll lose all influence, and I don't know if the U.S. is ready to take that hit.
But it's a dangerous game.
It's definitely dangerous.
Because
definitely dangerous.
We've had a president within the last year and a half who basically did not really care about American long-term strategy or power, and would be totally willing to sacrifice that for a pat on the back.
Well, and the last Taiwanese president was trying to do secret under the table deals with the Chinese. So yeah, absolutely. So it's always dangerous. It's better to prepare now than to wait and hope it all just turns out right. I totally agree. Yeah, I hope behind the scenes that they're telling.
I hope so too.
Telling Biden.
I hope they have a massive clandestine nuclear weapons program that we all don't know about.
Yep. #nuclearize. I agree. It should be easier to do that, right? Because we're closing down all these nuclear plants, so just turn them into
diverting the material.
Turning it into clean coal.
I mean, I'm actually not super well read on this, so I don't know where the uranium that Taiwan uses is refined. But if it is refined domestically, I mean, there's the potential that they could be developing ultra refined weapons grade uranium, or I assume it would just be uranium. But I don't know. It's
we'll see.
It's a big question mark.
Sure be, bud. I had a test I was gonna have us do, but I don't know. You gotta work soon, right?
I have an hour. I got an hour. It's okay. I'm gonna have a little snack, but
I'm gonna have me a snack too, boy. This is a stupid test. I just wanted to see it, and we need to end on something a little lighter. This is a heavy episode. Lots of serious topics.
that's true. It's dark time, man.
Yeah, it's important stuff. I mean, it's good to joke around, but it's also important to have serious discussions that we have no power over. So this is seeing how well you can judge the probability of an event happening. Mm-hmm. So I'll ask you these, and we can answer them. So this is the study is called, not a study. The little test is called From Shark Bites to Rare Blood Clots. How good are you at assessing risk?
See, this is the stupid thing about assessing risk is risks should be assessed. They should not be guessed.
Yeah.
But this is a guessing game.
This is a guessing game. So, what is the chance of being bitten by a shark in Australia in a year? So, in a given year, you only have certain options. So, 1 in a million or more, between 1 in a million and 1 in 100,000, between 1 in 100,000, 1 in 10K, between 1 in 10K and 1 in 100, or 1 in 100 or less.
There are something like 20-something million people in Australia. I would assume there are like 2 fatal shark bites a year. So, I would say it's probably less than 1 in a million.
That's what I would go with as well. Yeah, they basically have this. They basically have the same population as Taiwan. About 25 million, I think. So we're saying 1 in a million or more.
That's my guess, yeah.
Now that would be what I guess as well.
So we don't find out until...
Yes, we don't know yet. Okay, next one is Lotto Jackpot. What are the chances of winning the Saturday Lotto Jackpot in Australia? I guess these are all Australian questions.
Is it a state lotto or a national lotto?
It just says the Saturday Lotto Jackpot in Australia. Also... This is also known as Tats Lotto, or the Gold Lotto.
How many numbers are there? There's probably 5 or 6 numbers, 1 in 40. So you could take like a 2% chance of getting one of those numbers right and take it to the 5th or 6th power, which is fairly astronomically low. So what are the choices?
Same thing. 1 in a million or more, between 1 in a million and 100K, 100K and 10K, 10K, 100 or less. 1 in 100 or less.
Do you think out of all the people in Australia, do you think 1 million people buy a lottery ticket every time?
Yeah, I'd say yeah.
I'd say around there.
Yeah,
do you think one
close.
wins every time?
No. No. My answer for this would be the same as the last one. 1 in a million or more.
All right, let's go with that then.
Next one, blood clots. You might actually know this one from your articles. What is the risk of dying from a blood clot linked to AstraZeneca vaccine?
Depends on your age.
It also means risk of dying from a blood clot, not just getting the blood clot. So
depends on your age.
Of course it does. But whole population.
The whole population is what are the choices?
This is the question: is what is the risk of dying from the blood clot linked to the AstraZeneca vaccine?
What are the
Same
choices?
thing. 1 in a million or more, between 1 in a million, 100K, 100K and 10K, 10K, 100, and then 1 in 100 or less.
I don't know. It's weighted because I don't know the Australian population, but I can tell you for somebody between the ages of 20 and 39, it's over 1 in 100,000. But for somebody that's over 39, it's probably less than 1 in 100,000, down to astronomically low. So it depends how the population is structured. But I would guess somewhere around that range, between 1 in 100,000 and 1 in a million.
Okay.
That's my guess.
Okay. I feel like that's probably about right. Next one. What?
Putting propaganda.
What is the risk of dying from a wasp or bee sting in a year?
No fucking clue.
Dying from a wasp, not a lot, but a decent amount of people are allergic to bees.
But you'd have to go into such severe anaphylaxis, you'd die.
Some people are severely allergic.
Yeah, but how many? That's the question.
I think this is in Australia too, and they probably have like crazy wasps or something. I would say
it can't be more than a shark.
Really? I would think it would be more than a shark.
Why?
I bet more people die from bee stings than sharks every year. That would be my guess.
I would say that more people maybe get stung and even hospitalized, but dying from an anaphylaxis from a bee sting, I have no idea. I would say it's fairly low, but I don't know. I would say less than 1 in a million. What's your take?
Mine would be close to like 1 in a million. So I would be between 1 in a million or more, 1 million and 100K. I think both
Up
those
to you.
answers would be legitimate for me. Well, you said 1 in a million or more, and I said that or the other one. So we'll just go 1 in a million or more.
Okay, you might be right on this. I don't know.
We'll see. What is the chance of having twins if you're pregnant?
Oh, significantly higher. What? Sorry, it's 1 in a million, between 1 in 100,000, 1 in a million, and what was the other one?
100K and 10K, 10K and 100, and then the last one is 1 in 100 or less.
Probably 1 in 100 or less.
You think out of
Twins are born all the time.
every
I know
100?
somebody who's gotten pregnant.
well, in Taiwan, there seems to be a large number of twins born here. I think some of that has to do with fertility drugs. You want to go with 100 or less?
He's definitely not on fertility drugs. That's my guess. I don't know, man.
I agree. I think it's pretty common. Dying in a car crash. What is the risk of dying as a passenger in a car crash in a year?
I would say between 1 in 100K and 1 in a million. I looked recently at the statistics per hour on the risk of death flying on passenger jets. And it's like, I think it's like one in like 10 million per hour or something like that. Or 1 in a million. I can't really remember. But I think 1 in 100,000, between 1 in 100,000 and 1 in a million sounds reasonable to me. What do you think? Australia is also more dangerous. Far more dangerous for driving than like a lot of places.
Well, yeah, it's also got like
They drive on the left-hand side like idiots.
Shh. What's wrong with those people? The other problem is that they have just like where I used to live, they have large varmints that run around and are easy to hit and kill yourself. Not super easy to kill yourself, but it's possible, especially if they go through the windshield.
They also have huge distances, so there are a lot of people on really, really long car trips.
And probably, so they're probably often more tired. And when you have like long into stretches of road, they speed more often. So what do you say? 1 in a million and between? You say 1 in a million and 100K or
something like that. What about you?
I would either go with that or 100K and 10K.
Up to you, man.
All right. I think Australia is super dangerous, so we're gonna go with the lower one. Next one. Coin flip. What are the chances of getting 10 heads from 10 coin flips?
You just do 0.5 to the 10th power, right? Without using a calculator, I don't know.
I would say 1 in a million or more. That or 1 in a million or 100K.
Yeah, I don't want to do any.
I'm not doing
math.
any mental arithmetic. I gave that up a long time ago. What do you want? I chose the last one. No, I chose the last one.
You said 1 in a million or more? Sure.
Okay. So you just took my answer
Yes.
and didn't choose your shit. Getting hit by lightning in Australia.
Probably similar.
Yeah, I think the same. I would say 1 in a million or more. Death from COVID in Australia. I don't know how recent their numbers are because their numbers have been going up.
So it means not only that you contract it, but that you die.
Yeah. What is the risk of dying from COVID in Australia?
If
Based on the number of deaths since the beginning of the pandemic.
If you've already contracted it, or just of contracting it and dying of it. That's a weirdly worded question.
What is the risk of dying from COVID in Australia?
I assume it means contracting it and then dying from it.
Of course, yeah. I mean, you can't die of it if you haven't contracted it, right?
I'd say between 1 in 1,000 and 1 in 10,000 because the numbers of COVID overall are quite low too. That's my guess.
Yeah,
And then like add a between 1 and 2% chance of dying from it if you contract it.
I tend to agree. They have pretty low numbers. So what are the chances of drawing a royal flush from a deck of cards?
I don't even know what that means. Give that to you. Was that like ace, king, jack, queen,
No. So
joker, right?
Joker, yeah, you gotta get the Joker in there. Get Joker-fied, bud. So yeah, it's ace, king, queen, jack, and 10. And they all have to be of the same suit.
Oh, really?
Yes. I would say 1 in a million, 100K, or maybe 1 in a million or more.
1 in 52 times 1 in 51 times 1 in 50 times 1. Yeah. So 50. I'll do quick mental math.
Quick maths.
50. I guess 2,500. 125. Fuck this. Just random. I don't care.
All right, we'll go 1 in a million and 1 in 100K. Injury while fishing. What is the risk of serious injury while fishing? I don't know what they mean. Injury that results in hospitalization. So this is the statistics here are from casual or sport fishing in Australia between 2016 and 2017.
Like 10K, something like that, for each time you go fishing.
So
I don't know.
10K and 100 or 10K and 100K.
I don't know.
All right, I'm gonna say 10K and 100. Yeah, I'm gonna say 10K and 100K. Next one: injury while competitive dancing. What is the risk of serious
Much
injury
higher.
from competitive dancing? Then fishing.
It's probably similar, honestly, because like dancing doesn't sound dangerous, but
It can be.
it's a lot of it is probably like stress injuries.
Yeah, it could be long-term stuff, or I mean, it depends on what kind of dance you're doing. But some of them, like, you could get like dropped on your head, or break your leg, twist your ankle really bad, where you would technically be hospitalized. So here's the 10K and 100, or 100K and 10K.
10K and 100K.
10K and 100K. All right, same one. So let's see how our answers compare.
100%.
Let's look at all these. We'll go through these real quick, and then we'll get on out of here. So shark bite. You guessed 1 in a million. The actual chance is 1 in 975.4 thousand.
So almost
so
perfect.
basically perfect. Yeah, because we can't guess exact numbers. So we were about right. Lotto Jackpot. You guessed 1 in 1 million. They say 1 in 8.145 million. So we guessed the right one.
Okay.
Because you can't guess any higher than that. So that's that's pretty low chances. Save your money, folks.
Huh.
Blood clots.
By the way, there's a huge lottery thing in Taiwan. I'm sure you've seen it.
About
It's
what?
like USCE.
Oh, for the receipt lottery?
No,
Or
for like
the
the lottery.
Oh yeah. I saw people posting about that. Kind of makes me want to buy a ticket, but I really think gambling is generally a waste of money. We guessed right. We said 1 in a million for AstraZeneca blood clots. 1 in 1.22 million.
Yeah, so that's an average. So like I said, for people, 1 in 1.2 million. For people under 39, it's about 1 in 100,000. So it's about 10 times higher.
Yeah, this is for like the whole population.
Right. I'm just giving a warning to anyone thinking of taking that poison.
Do your own research, folks. Fatal stings. We guessed 1 in a million. It is 1 in 5.072 million.
Wow, we're pretty good at this.
We are pretty good at this. So that is pretty low that you would get. So what was
It's lower than sharks.
Yeah, it is. It is lower than sharks. I thought it would be higher. So you were right about that.
Because I don't think that many people die of anaphylaxis. It's pretty easy to get treatment if you go to a hospital, or if anyone has like an EpiPen around.
It's true. What I was thinking is that because Australia is like so open, maybe it would, because some people will like die in like 10 minutes. But yeah, most of those people that are severely allergic, you're right. Usually people will carry an EpiPen. Like I used to have an EpiPen, and I would never like, I wouldn't die for
Math.
tree nut allergies. Yeah, math and tree nuts. That's how you get me. It just starts swelling up and throwing up everywhere. So twins, we guessed 1 in 100, 1 in 33.
Yeah, I figured.
We were right because that's the lowest answer we could have guessed.
Wow, we got almost a perfect score.
We've been right on everyone so far. Dying in a car crash. What is the risk of dying in a car crash? So we said 1 in 100K. It is actually 1 in 34,317.
I thought it was a range. So did we get the closest one?
We did not.
Oh, we put 1 at 100K. To
Yeah,
1
we were like 1. Oh no, we would have been right because we said 1 in 100K between and 10,000. So yes, we would have been right.
See, fuck.
We're so good.
Because you said Australia's a little more dangerous.
Yeah.
I remember you picked that one.
Coin flip. We guessed 1 in a million. The chance is actually 1 in 1,024. We were very off with this one.
That doesn't sound right. 10 coin flips.
Yeah, you have to get 10 heads and 10 from 10 coin flips.
So it's just 0. Let me calculate. Quick math. Yeah. Guess that is right.
Whoops. That's okay. First miss. But
Stupid. Stupid question.
Yeah, bad question. We didn't like it. If we would have done the math, we would have got it right. But hashtag no math. Only hashtag quick math.
Jordan's allergic, okay? Stop fucking discriminating.
It's disgusting that you guys would even talk about do math around me. I want to cry. Hit by lightning. We guessed 1 in a million. It is 1 in 230.5 thousand.
Okay. Well,
So
we can't guess 1 in a million. You're saying 1 in a million and above, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we were one
So it's higher than sharks.
one order above where we should have been.
See, lightning is dangerous, as I've always said.
It is dangerous.
Pretty serious.
It's-
That's getting struck or dying of getting struck.
That is just getting hit.
Oh.
That is just getting hit by lightning.
Okay.
Death from COVID. We guessed 1 in 100K. It is 1 in 27,716.
So is that right? The closest answer? We guessed between
10
and 100K, right?
I think we guessed between 1 and yes. And also we were much closer than the median of other Guardian readers. This is a Guardian, of course, it's a stupid Guardian thing. Royal Flush, what are the chances? We guessed 1 in a million. It is 1 in 649,000. And we were also closer than all the other Guardian readers. So
Than everyone else.
we're smarter than everyone. Injury while fishing. What is the risk of serious injury while fishing? We guessed 1 in 100K. It's actually 1 in 581. We were quite off on that one. I can't believe it. I wonder what they like. Oh, the other thing is that we're Americans, so we don't have good health care, so we don't go to the doctor every time we get a boo boo.
That's true too.
Fucking Australians. Jeez. I forgot we're dealing with a bunch of cowards. Just kidding. We love you if you're in Australia. Injury while competitive dancing. All right. I always like to do really, like, when I know Australians are around, I do like the really bad, like, stereotypical stuff, like, that's not a knife, this is a knife. Or like,
English.
throw some shrimp on the barbie.
It's
It's
offensive.
It's just stupid. Oh, you eating a blooming onion over there. Yeah, it turned into English. Anyway, for competitive dancing, we guess 1 in 100K is 1 in 593, so it's actually really close to fishing.
Yeah, I figured that'd be similar.
Yeah. Well, out of 12, yeah.
But I don't understand the question. Is that over the course of a career of fishing, or is that every time you go fishing, every time you dance? Like, that's kind of a poorly worded question, Guardian.
What are you surprised by poor question making from the Guardian? Like the. Anyway, I hope you all took the test with us, and I hope you all realized that we're smart. We're real good at guessing stuff.
Smarter than anyone who reads the Guardian. It's been established.
Facts. Hashtag facts, folks. All right, we got to get out of here. We got to go eat some little treats. We love you all. We'll talk to you soon. Don't forget to go check out our Patreon and etc. and the website. FCP 最大.
Quick maths.